Hey, what's up guys? This is Feeds again, back with another video. This time we're going to be talking about energy efficiency or resource efficiency, and as well as making sure you don't make early game mistakes. A lot kind of goes into this game, especially when people claim it to be a kind of pay to win option. You can do a lot of things right early on and have to pay a single dollar and be relatively successful in this game without any issue. And what I came to find out is that, especially on your first starting account, you're going to run into a lot of problems when it comes to being efficient with your resources. That's silver, energy, clan keys, skill books, etc. And there's a lot of different ways you can kind of fine tune it. And here's just some tips that we can go over. So the first things first, whenever you offer these offers to buy skill packs, don't do it. Usually the value doesn't exceed even remotely close touch what would be considered a good value, and the majority of the tomes that you can get early on you can actually get through a variety of different ways, so we'll kind of touch on those. So the first things first, whenever you guys are looking to figure out how to get tomes, the easiest way to do it is of course just to look at your challenges. A lot of the challenges are going to offer you different options and features. As you can see, if you did the artifact challenge early on, you get a lot of skill books available for rares, which makes it good. Rare skill books pop up a lot, especially when you do clan boss easy and normal. You'll get them in the rewards typically every time that you kill them, as well as you get them throughout the quest, and a lot of the events will typically offer one or two skill tomes that go to. The second thing to remember too is that when you go into scaling up a character, it's better to focus on one character than to spread your skill points all around. And some of the reasons why you would do that is, more than anything else, you can't determine where the skill tomes go at it. There was someone who suggested that if you had the right amount of skill tomes for a thing and there wasn't any other that had a similar amount, that if you used that right amount of skill tomes, it would go into that ability. I've tested this numerous times and that's just untrue. The RNG factor of it might help you a little bit, but if they have 3 abilities, you have a 33% chance of it going into the right option for it, which can be a little frustrating to it, especially because if you farmed up a whole bunch of tomes and there's only one ability you need to level, it kind of puts you in a spot if you don't get that ability to the last one. The next thing, remember when you select a hero on who you want to use to skill up, especially early on, what I always recommend, if you start with Aethel, probably just skill her up first. And the reason why is because you're going to get a lot of opportunity to do extra damage, debuff cooldown, and then if you have her skilled up first, it gives you a lot of functionality later on into the higher dungeons and keeps and stuff like that. That gives you some positive power to it. Kale is another good option if you start with him, to make sure you focus on skilling him up first. And at that point, it just kind of determines who you get or who you pull from the blue and green shards that you get, as well as the heroes that you get when it comes to it. So there's a lot of options that go into it. My recommendation before you even make an option on who you select to use your abilities, maybe check out Reddit, YouTube, one of the Discords, and of course maybe check to see if anyone's streaming and see if maybe they have some input onto it, as just kind of a beginner's way to make sure you don't make the mistake. There's a lot of times where people have used epic tomes on rare heroes. Don't do that either. When it comes to finding epic tomes and legendary tomes are relatively hard, and because you'll run into so many heroes that you're going to want to skill up, you want to make sure you have as many options as possible. This is the other reason too why I think budget builds are so important. Being able to build a green or rare hero makes it a lot easier to skill up and gear up than it would if you did a rare or legendary that comes into it. And especially if you opt for the option to not pay to win, or pay to buy tomes or anything like that, it puts you in a better spot, because then you're not obligated to have to go and farm on a super high regular basis, farming higher level clan bosses and stuff like that, or waiting for events to give you those books. You'll just have that ability right away, which comes into it. So if you're able to, go ahead and try and find a budget build using rares if you can, and then of course try and find 1 or 2 epics or legendaries that you want to scale up and focus on those guys. The worst thing that you can do is spend your tomes on multiple heroes, well, without having one maxed out all the way. And this is a super big issue, because as you run into the higher brutal maps or campaigns, and as you run into the higher areas of clan bosses and keeps stuff like that, you're going to need the maximum damage possible when it comes into it. And just kind of showcase it a little bit, we'll look at Cold Heart's abilities. You can see that you get a 30% damage increase with your Heartseeker alone when you've got level 4 on it. And then of course you get the cooldown reduction at level 5, which makes it a really good ability to have onto it. But what happens is if you end up leveling up just 5%, and then you waste another one on, say, your Aethel, waste another one on your War Priest, another one on your Royal Guard, then what you've effectively done is you spread out all their abilities and you haven't made anyone significantly stronger, which becomes an issue later on when it comes to it, because you're going to run into those power stops too. The other thing to remember too is that when you select your hero for using your skill books, you want to make sure that you're being efficient in who's going to be kind of your in-game or your late-game hero when it comes to it. Obviously, as a new account, it's hard to tell who's going to be that hero, So there's things to look for too. So for instance, if you pulled a Gore Grab early on, he's ultimately going to be an in-game hero because he's got a lot of functionality to support, a lot of heals, cooldowns, buff potential, turn meter fill, and then of course his Dispel attack that goes onto it. When you look at a hero, if he just does pure damage, typically a pure damage hero can be done by a lot of different heroes. So that might not be the first character that you want to look at when it comes to it. Now, if you had an Aethel or Kale, that's a whole nother story because they give you a lot of functionality when it comes to doing War Master and having or Giant Slayer. And then, of course, the poison that you get from Kale makes them very viable for Clan Boss. So those are some specialty, what I call specialty damage dealers that ultimately you'd want to focus on scaling up first. But those are just different ways to kind of look at it. Obviously, when you get your Ascension and higher ranks in there, you'll have a lot more opportunity with Ascended skills that give them a lot of functionality too. So you always want to look too as to what their Ascended abilities might be and what it offers you in the long term as far as what you can and can't do ultimately when it comes to it. So that's all we're going to talk about on skill tomes. If you have any questions specifically about a certain hero that you have, go ahead and hit me up in the comments below or hit me up on Discord, and I'll try and do my best to answer those questions for you. Now let's get to the silver expense. Silver is one of those things that are very easy to come by, so you never want to buy any silver from the shops. There are some things that are worth its weight in the amount of money that you spend on it, but ultimately silver is never going to be a good pack that you can get to it. And the simple reason why is because you can farm up that silver relatively quick, even if it doesn't feel like it. One place you'll find a lot of opportunity to buy some good items with your silver is, of course, in the market. Once you have it fully unlocked, every month when it resets, you have an opportunity to get blue shards. And those blue shards, of course, have a chance to drop legendary, epic, or rares, which gives you a good opportunity to try and get new heroes, things like that. And I think you can get up to 6 or 7 every month, guaranteed to show up on the shop. And then, of course, you can always buy the mystery shards. If you ever have the reset daily, where you have to buy something from the market, they're probably the cheapest item on the market that you can buy without spending a ton of silver on all this other stuff. I would encourage you to probably never buy heroes unless you saw something like a monk that you wanted to use specifically for Clan Boss, or if you wanted to skill them up as well. And this is another way to find skill ups when it comes to it as well. If you're looking for a green to skill up, instead of using a skill book, you can always find them usually here if you can't farm them in a dungeon. The other place where silver plays a huge factor is, of course, on gearing up your items. And there's a lot of different approaches or methods when it comes to scaling up. It's hugely RNG based, and the higher ranked item that you get, the more expensive it's going to be. And then, of course, when it comes to it, once you get past certain areas or get to certain items like the rings, necklaces, and banners, it becomes incredibly expensive to itemize or to level up all the way. Where it can cost you almost 40,000 silver skill up on that, which can get super expensive because if you do that 10 times, that's 400,000 silver that you've effectively spent on an item, and to fail feels kind of heart wrenching. So my recommendation is if you do get jewelry early on, just get it to rank 4, rank 8, and don't spend any more silver on it so you have everything maxed out. As you can see on my row bar, I've got everything maxed out. Obviously the ring I haven't maxed out on there, but everything else is. I got super good RNG when I did this, and what I did for my necklace and my banner is I just waited till the daily reset at 7 p.m. Central Time, which allowed me to try for 4 upgrade chances, and I would just spend those 4 upgrade chances on that, and I wouldn't spend any more silver on it. So over time, I was able to upgrade those items without having to spend a whole bunch of money, or trying to force it through like you can if you spend 10 to 15 upgrades doing it. The other part too is making sure that you upgrade the right items. If you know you have a filler item on a character, ultimately you don't want to upgrade that item unless you're going to use it on someone else. So if I have something early on, say on my Aethel, filling until I get my life skill set from the weekly rewards, then I'm probably not going to sit there and upgrade it all the way to 16. But what I would do is upgrade it to maybe 4, 8, or even 12, just to make sure I have some stats unlocked to make it work for you. You don't lose anything by upgrading an item, except silver. So if you upgrade all your items and you have the silver to do it, by all means do it, because then you have more options for more heroes down the road. But just make sure that your end game is gonna be for those items, or that you're gonna use them for a relatively long time. As you can see, some of the 3-star items that I got on this account originally from the quest, I managed to keep on, and I equipped on some of my lesser heroes, just as kind of practice tools and practice builds when it comes to it. So as you get more stuff, obviously you can see not everything's upgraded 100%. As there are events that come out where you have the opportunity to upgrade and you get points for the events, sometimes it's worth holding on to those items. And then as you can see, there's a lot of different options that come to it. So it gives you some functionality too when it comes to doing events proper. So you don't always have to upgrade everything either, because you can always save them for the events. And then of course, when it comes to if you happen to farm 12-3 pretty consistently, you can get the carrying items, the shields, that sell anywhere from 9,000 to 20,000 silver, which makes it easy to get silver in addition to upgrading items that you need for the event. So if you don't have enough items, don't ever fret, because once you get to 12.3, even if it's on normal or hard, you can still farm those shields and they still give you a decent amount of silver, and they give you that opportunity to upgrade for events when it comes to it. So that's really all you can say about silver. Just kind of recap, don't buy silver from the stores. Try not to waste your silver too much on the jewelry, because it'll come naturally if you just do it, if you just kind of set four attempts aside every day or something like that. And then of course you want to make sure that you focus on the proper things that you're upgrading. I always try and upgrade things with crit rate, of course, and crit damage, because those are the two biggest stats you'll end up needing for a lot of your heroes. Or if it is like a percent stat, like defense percent, attack percent, or HP percent, those are relatively important stats that you want to try and focus on as well when it comes to a lot of your different heroes, because a percent upgrade will always be better than a flat upgrade when it comes to it, more often than not. So the next thing comes to, these two will kind of be combined. So energy and arena tokens. So energy early on, you get a lot of it because of how quickly you level up in the game, and not by your hero levels, but by your actual character, your champion level. You'll get a lot of EXP early on, which can be a little confusing because you'll get so quick and then you'll burn through it really fast, and that's just a natural progression. Some of the do's and don'ts about doing that, though, is making sure that you kind of plan ahead, and it's very hard early on, especially if you haven't played this before, to figure out what exactly to plan for. So my recommendation early on, especially because the first 7 days your account's active, you'll have access to all the keeps and the minotaurs and the ice golems and spiders and dragon lair and all that stuff. And it's important to note that unless you're doing the challenges early on or you're trying to do those, I wouldn't really encourage you to focus on anything on this side of the map, like the ice golem, the spiders and dragon's lair and fire knights, because those items ultimately, even if you got super lucky, aren't going to be like game changing for you when it comes to those stats, because you need a full set or a two-piece at a minimum to try and make that stuff work for you. What you do want to focus on, though, is that knowing that once you do these keeps up to level 3 on everything, and the void keep on level 2, you're guaranteed to get a blue shard, which means early on you can have a third or fourth party member that's a blue, at minimum a rare character, which means you have a little bit more HP base, you have a little bit more attack damage, you have a little bit more opportunity when it comes to it. So it's important to do those things and not spend a whole bunch of energy farming potions to ascend, because ultimately you're going to run into that situation to where you're spending more time and energy on this, and you get little XP and little reward for it overall. Now, if you have a war priest where getting a tier 3 ascension will get you an AoE heal, that's something you can focus on with the Spirit Keep and the Arcane Keep. Or if you want to get Aethel to tier 3 so you can get a little extra damage from her, that's something worth looking at. Or Kale or something like that. But you don't want to spend a whole lot of time farming on here. This is where I find a lot of people get caught up, is they farm on the dungeons more than anything else, rather than actually focusing on the campaign that comes to. Now, the important part to remember too on the campaign is that a lot of people get caught up trying to 3-star everything before they clear the campaign. This is a big no-no. And the reason why that is because you'll 3-star everything eventually. The real objective is once you can clear a stage, you know you can pretty much 3-star that stage. With the exception of a couple of the brutal levels, being able to complete it is a good indicator that you'll be able to actually 3-star it down the road, or if not, at that time. So I encourage you to clear through as much as possible. Once you get to about 5-7, you're going to run into a little bit of a roadblock unless you pull a good rare out of the shards that you get. So what you want to do is make sure that instead of wasting your energy going down these lower ones, you could go farm a little bit of crit gear, but always go back to Felwyn's Gate and then just kind of go through the campaign again. So 1 through 6. And if you find that you're dying to the boss constantly over that, this is when you want to look at potentially ranking up a hero or sending that hero into a little bit, or getting that ascension up on a hero to try and help them get the AoE heal for War Priest, Aethel, Kale, Elhain, or Gaelic. You want to get their ability up to do that stuff. Because this is the first kind of roadblock that you run into when it comes to doing the campaign on normal the first time through. The second roadblock that you really run into will be in a Hollowed Halls. And simply put, because Hollowed Halls has a weird affinity setup for all the heroes. In addition to, you have a lot of AoE damage, you have a lot of defense with crit, and you have a lot of turn reduction, which can make it a little frustrating to do for you in the long term. So you want to try and focus on things that are definitely going to offset those things, which could be higher levels, it could be higher ascensions, things like that. So a good way to not waste your energy, though, is to keep failing on the mission. What a lot of people do is they go through and they fail on a mission 7 to 8 times. Well, that's a huge energy expenditure that you could have used somewhere else and actually been rewarded more for it. So if you ever run into situations where you get stopped at Hollowed Halls, a good recommendation is to go to 10-3 and farm here for a little bit. well, it's not 8 energy. On normal, it's 4 energy, I think. Yeah, on 4, you use 4 energy farming this. It's good XP for relatively higher level mobs, so it's going to be some of the hardest mobs that you get, so you get the best XP from it. And of course, the shields sell for a relatively decent amount of silver. So going into that, that gives you more silver to actually upgrade your items and help you get closer to it. Remember, starting on normals is a relatively huge expense, simply on time and understanding kind of the mechanics that go into it. So being able to farm 10-3 relatively well will give you an opportunity to kind of level up some of your items, which will give you more opportunity to do 11 and of course 12. 11 is probably the hardest one. 12 is a little bit easy because they're right affinities. Long as you can get past some of the early stages, you're alright for the most part when it goes into it. The last part, arena tokens. Use your arena tokens as much as humanly possible. Especially in bronze and silver, you want to try and get as many points as possible, as many tokens as possible, and of course get as high as possible. Because once you get to bronze 4 and silver 4, obviously you're going to get a lot more upgrades. You get a damage HP increase, as well as some other bonuses that come with it. And then of course it gives you a lot better features at the end of the week or the start of the week. You get these chests down here that give you different features too, which is more gear, more stat items. Sometimes you can get potions. Sometimes you get XP brews. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you'll get shards, void shards, and if you're potentially in gold 4, you can get a sacred shard, which is a very, very low % chance. And of course, your clan boss keys, kind of similar to your arena keys. Use them when they're up, and make sure you're doing them properly. You want to attack the. You don't want to focus on the highest level boss. You want to focus on the boss that you can do the most damage on. So for a lot of people in this clan, they focus on Brutal because they know they're going to be able to unlock the Grandmaster chest, and every night when he gets killed, everybody's going to get 2 of these chests. What that means for them is you get 2 opportunities for shards, 2 opportunities for brews, 2 opportunities for silver, for different item upgrades. All that stuff kind of goes into it. So even if you have to do easy boss first before you can start doing damage on normal boss, that's perfectly fine, but make sure you're doing that on a regular basis. What I do in the morning is when I wake up, if I want to play through it, I can. On my old account, typically I'll just auto. Even though auto is not the most effective way to do damage, it is a way that while I'm taking a shower or getting ready for work, I can knock out those things. So that's kind of it, guys. Make it real simple. Kind of address some of those efficiency issues that kind of pop up. Obviously, you can spend hours talking about what's the best way. I've posted some of my speed runs where I've cleared normal in 3.5 hours. On my YouTube, so if you guys have any questions, you can go specifically to those. I'll post the links below if I need to. But if you have any questions on something specific or on a hero that you have, go ahead and leave a comment below. You can hit me up on Discord or on my Twitch, and just let me know if you have any questions that I can maybe help you out with. I've started several accounts, and I do fresh runs once a week, just to make sure or to find the best efficient way to do it. And this is where I find that a lot of players have had questions for me, or they make these mistakes generally. I know I did when I first started my account, where I wasted tomes on Eighth that I shouldn't have, like epic tomes. And of course, you can waste a lot of your other resources that come into it as well. So that'll be it, guys. I appreciate everyone stopping by and all the support recently. If you like the video, go ahead and hit like below. If you like the video enough to follow, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any questions, like I said, hit me up on Twitch, Discord, or YouTube with comments or messages, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. So that'll be it, guys, and you stay summoning.
Run! It's gonna be a left click. It's gonna be a left click.
Woo!